8% of the CARES Act PPP program reached restaurant owners. Is that something that when that was announced back in April of 2020 that you were expecting and waiting on, or did you just realize that, listen, this is not going to work, whether there's a fund there or not, and I'm just going to close the doors because others I'll be drowning in debt?
Yeah, such a good question. And it was something that we wrestled with pretty extensively. Just a little bit of backstory here. When we first opened, the location that we selected was very neighborhood driven. Right? It was really great part of Minneapolis, but it was very residential, meaning that between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., the neighborhood was pretty vacant with everybody exiting to go to work. Now, as we sort of evolved the business into more food centric, that turned out to not work in our favor, meaning that we didn't have that lunchtime crowd that we needed to continue to grow and to build on the success that we had, right? And hence this idea of starting the catering business, right? Because if folks weren't coming to us at lunchtime, let's bring it to them. So really a large part of Wholesome Kitchen's revenue was around the catering to the downtown office crowd. When COVID-19 hit, that catering just fell off a cliff. Like it went to zero. But and again, a little bit of backdrop. In our expansion to be able to offer that catering and so forth, we had to bring on additional higher paid staff, and we had to take out a lease. We leased some space in a shared commercial kitchen. And we just had some additional responsibilities as well. And so as we looked at the picture about our existing revenue for our on-premise and sort of married that with what our expense load was, I just didn't see a path forward. And I knew that this pandemic wasn't going to be done in a few months. So the road for us, as tough as it was to sort of come to terms with, just didn't look that promising. And to your point, right, we already had a reasonable debt load, taking on additional debt. And I think part of the CARES package for the PPP was that, like, I think 75% of that funds had to be applied to staff wages and so forth. Yeah. And so for us, like, if we were going to scale back, that was like, would have been helpful, but that wouldn't have sort of carried us through the sort of length of the pandemic.
Something that's very important you just touched on, which is when you're an entrepreneur, you have to look at where you are and what even 1 month close can do to you. And if you can be forward thinking and realizing that's going to take a lot of tremendous debt on you, it's something that you have to make a decision now rather than taking the wait and see approach.
It was so hard, right? And we knew what was coming with the PPP loans and so forth. It just wasn't going to fill the gaps for us. And look, this was a really hard decision. There were a lot of sleepless nights and so forth. And personally, right, that making that decision hurt. And beyond just sort of this idea of failure being painful, right, I had obligations, both financial, but also sort of personal obligations to a variety of people, and you feel like you let them down, and that's the hard part.